Okay, today we're going to look at Chapter 12 of Browder. We're going to try this again. I understand that didn't quite, you guys couldn't see everything, or rather hear everything, when I did this the last time. So we're going to try it again. So, social skills and interactions, that's what Chapter 12 is all about. There we go. Have to hit the right button there. So in this chapter, they're talking about how peer relationships are important to building social skills. And this ties into your community-based instruction, because really that is one of the places where we often don't always understand everything that's going on with students. And so when we do that community-based instruction, and that's why we're doing Chapter 12 so early in the semester, is it can really help them in all areas of school. And many of our severe needs students, we need to start off with looking at their different types of peer relationships and different types of social skills, and building those social skills so that we can help them be able to transverse better through school. So we want to make sure that we have this piece in place in order to make academics work. So we're starting off with Chapter 12, and then there's also going to be a pre-recorded section on community-based instruction that you'll need to look at. And I apologize for this being so late in the week when I finally figured out how to make this work. Okay, so the importance of positive peer relationships. You'll see in the Browder and Spooner chapter that they look at social and emotional development. Why is that important? And how is it that we can help to positively engage students? Because we have to have that positive engagement in order for them to have school engagement. So we're going to be looking at how we can access, or rather help students access, social networking, because we as non-disabled or possibly mildly disabled, we're pretty good at accessing the social environment, okay? But individuals with severe needs, they don't always have this ability. And so we have to help them to learn how to do this. And what it really leads to, it leads to skill acquisition because they learn different types of skills. But it also leads to their quality of life, which is very important in all aspects of special education. So we want to think about, what are peer relationships? So our peer relationships, they're basically any kind of relationship, really. It's an interaction and association that we have with other people, okay? But in the schools with our children, it's the kinds of interactions they have with other children who are the same age and usually grade, okay? Now, usually they go up one grade or down one grade, but usually they don't have friends that are too far away from them in age group, okay? And basically they range from classmates to lab partners to teammates to neighborhood associations, different people that they know. They may not always be in the same class, but they know who they are and they're friends with them. Okay, so what kinds of interactions do they have? There's academic and social interactions. Okay, so What do we have in common in our classroom? How are you doing that history project? Can I borrow your lit notes? Okay, so there's different types of academic interactions. Then there's friendships, things that you just have in common with people. Status relationships. So some kids are used as tutors. So you might have a tutor, tutee, or person being tutored, okay, relationship. But you also might look at those status relationships as, from popularity to athletics. There are different ways of looking at status. And look at their peer groups. Who do they actually spend time with? Do they have a peer group? And this is very important for our students with severe needs. Often we don't find that they have much of a peer group. And so that's one of the things that we might want to build. Looking at what types of memberships do they have. Okay, now we're not talking about outside of school. We're talking about what kind of group memberships are they a part of. When you put them into a group in the classroom, does everybody in that group accept them and work with them? Romantic relationships, and this would be, of course, for older kids. And then relationships with adults. So what kind of a relationship does that student have with their teachers, with any paraprofessionals that might be in and out of the classroom, with the administrators, so with their related service personnel, should they have any? And so how do they get along with others? Okay, so when we look at context and different relationships, really we're talking about how interactions are affected by the different settings that they occur in, okay? So we might have different types of interactions in language arts than we do in PE. I would hope so, okay? Because the relationship that you have in one class, because you're very academic, may not work well in PE if you're a small person who has two left feet and you really can't catch a football. Okay, that might explain, well, not the two left feet, but I can't really catch a football. Okay, so or if you're just not very fast on your feet in one area of PE, it might not be a big deal in another sport that you might be playing. For example, like golf. Okay, some schools do have golf. I understand. I've never been to one, but now we also have to remember that relationships are going to change with age. So maturity matters. And so that's another area where our students with special needs tend to get left behind by their peers, is because what we know about special needs is that students with disabilities tend to be, with mild disabilities, tend to be 1 to 3 years behind their peers in maturity. Now, that gap is going to expand as the disability becomes more pronounced. And so you might have a student in your classroom that is really very immature, especially if you're teaching middle school, and they have a really severe need. And so you kind of have to look at that and figure out how to make that work. And then we want to look at the social lives. Okay, how are they interacting with peers? These students with severe disabilities, how do they interact with peers in the hallway? Are they getting bullied in the hallway? Are they getting pushed around? What about in the classroom? The lunchroom. And we have to remember that not all students with severe disabilities have a low IQ. some of them are very, very intelligent. They just have very severe disability areas. And so that can also play into how they interact with others and some of the issues that they might have. And this is also where it's very important to have those related service personnel also in the schools and coming into the classroom on a fairly regular basis so that they can be able to monitor what's going on so they can teach our students when they're out of the classroom, giving them specialized instruction on how to interact and how to manage better. Okay, so I found this slide. It is not in your book, okay? Now the information may be in the book, but this is not actually in the book. And so this is what some parents have reported in different research studies. And this one comes out of the seals.net. And now I'm going to show you a couple of slides here. And I think that's very, very telling. This is for middle school students. And I didn't find one for elementary, or would have put that one in there as well. Students with severe disabilities who had never visited with friends during the previous year. They'd never been invited to their home. 17% with intellectual disabilities. Now that's not bad, okay? 21% multiple disabilities. And remember, multiple disabilities does not mean they just have more than one disability. It means that they have more than one severe disability. And autism, 32%. Rarely or never receive telephone calls from friends. 50% intellectual disabilities, 64% multiple disabilities, and 81% of children with autism never received or rarely received telephone calls. Now, students with severe disabilities that had been invited to social activities with other children, they had been invited but not visited, okay? So I'm not talking about the not visited up here. I'm talking about just hadn't been invited out. 80% of children with intellectual disabilities had been invited. 74% with multiple disabilities had been invited. This doesn't say whether they went or not. And 68% of children with autism had been invited. Now, this is the percentage of high school, okay? You're going to see that the percentages really change here. Frequently saw friends outside of school, 22%, 14%, and with autism, 6%. Rarely or never received telephone calls from friends, 42% intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities was 63%, and autism was a whopping 84%. Get together with friends outside of formal groups at least once a week. Intellectual disabilities, 54%. Multiple disabilities, 38%. And autism, 24%. So you could really see how interactions with students start becoming more on a narrower band, and they just are not functioning. So what are some things that we can do to identify needs and opportunities? They also go into this in the chapter. So we look at how are we reflecting as a school on how our students are functioning, especially those students with special needs. So in each school location where students spend their day, ask yourselves, when you're in that school, Are students with and without disabilities in the same place? Are they all functioning together? Are they doing the same things? So do they have some of the same activities? Now, they may not be on the same level all the time, but do they have the same types of activities? Are they doing the same things and the same times? Okay, so we don't want to separate our students with severe disabilities from the general population because they learn from their peers and their peers learn from them. So this is something very important to kind of look at.